So I would like to invite on stage Jean-Eric, Vanda, and Fred. Please join us on stage. They are going to talk about trends, traffic, and international markets in 2024. So Fred, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
All right. And I don't forget to click to have all your faces.
No, thank you so much, Benoit. I'm really excited about the session we have today. It's super interesting to be able to talk to you both. I think for me, looking at both of the websites that you work on, it's really interesting to have a representation from what we would potentially consider non-traditional e-commerce companies, but also websites that face very similar problems with the enterprise e-commerce websites that most of the audience will be familiar with today. So can we take a moment just for you both to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about some of the work that you do with the businesses that you're at?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Vanda Pokecz. I know the second name is not the easiest, so I considered going by Vanda, like Adele or something, but I don't know if that will stick. I am the team lead of Ladenzeile's SEO team. Previously, I had been senior SEO product manager at the same, so I've been around a while, 4 years at Ladenzeile. And Ladenzeile is a mature tech company based in Berlin, where we have been specializing in comparison shopping for over a decade now. And today we are actually one of Europe's biggest players when it comes to comparison shopping, particularly for fashion, living, and lifestyle. And yeah, our platforms, Ladenzeile in Germany and Austria and Shopalike in the rest, are really aimed at helping users find what they are looking for from millions of items, thousands of shops across our 13 markets and 12 languages. And yeah, I mean, no biggie, but our goal is to kind of turn online shopping into finding your favorites.
Thank you so much.
And I'm Jean-Eric. I'm French. I have a long job title and a long name. Sorry about that again. I'm working for Vestiare Collective for almost 3 years now. We are specialized in luxury resale. We operate in 88 countries with almost 6 million products, something like that. Diverse range of items, not just products. We have authentication, we have quality global experiences with our customer.
Thank you both so much. I mean, I hope you all get some idea of how exciting it must be, but also how challenging both of these roles would be. I think one of the things that you both touched on, and I know is some of the challenges you have, is around sort of how you work in different languages, with different cultures across different markets. I wanted to kind of understand a little bit more about how you would think about optimizing content for different markets and also what the strategy behind that might look like.
Sure. I can start.
Yeah, of course.
So as I mentioned, we have 13 markets, 12 languages. And back in the days when I started at Ladenzeile, we actually had dedicated sort of managers with local language knowledge for each of these markets, but keep in mind at that point we also focused a lot on off-page SEO. This changed a lot when we kind of moved to the product area right now where we are sitting, and we started kind of following this product-led approach a little bit. But of course there's a lot of challenges when it comes to focusing on 13, in this case, different markets. The elephant in the room is the language, but like it doesn't come down to being grammatically correct. I mean, not only to that. It comes down to mainly things like how do you localize your content to the needs of those users who are sitting in these markets, and that is challenging. But I mean, of course, there's some things that we can do, and in our case, one of the things which, in general, because we are an sort of e-commerce site, with millions of sites, we have a lot of automation, of course. And part of that automation is to ensure that certain parts of the content, so things like meta titles, header tags, etc., are scaled and automated throughout all these languages with correct grammar and so on. So automation is, of course, a big part of our work. But beyond that, what has changed since we do not have this local language knowledge within our SEO team is that we really changed our processes. So that means that SEOs in my team these days often act as sort of consultants, which means that we provide sort of database insights, we create methodologies, templates, etc., which then other teams can use. So that's kind of what has happened in a nutshell.
Thank you so much.
Well, that was quite funny when I joined Vestiare, because at first the SEO content team was only one person. They were relying on Google Translate. I don't know if you try to translate something, but could be very funny sometimes. We had some challenge to be tackled. What we decided, it's basically you develop a framework, a secure framework from an SEO perspective, where you have knowledge, where you have education, where you have almost everything you can rely to some relevant content. Mm-hmm. And then you can use the resources within other teams, such as brand marketing, performance marketing, who are basically sitting into those countries. By using them in a secure framework, they can basically participate to your SEO strategy and they can build on that. And by building on that, you can be better at it and improve on it. At the same time, there's the global aspect. If you take any, for instance, some example like sneakers versus trainers with UK and US, which is exactly the same product at the end, mm-hmm. but not the same world. And you need to decide how you can build your website. So from a technical perspective, you need to segment this and address it to the local markets you operate in.
I have to say, I really like that you mentioned the Google Translate, because obviously when you don't have that local language knowledge, you need to do something, and that is why we are also started experimenting and working with certain translation tools. Sometimes have to admit all the way from a basic Google Translate integration in Google Sheets, which, for certain things can be beneficial still, but also tools like DeepL, or most recently, as I'm sure many of you in this room, we did start to experiment with ChatGPT. I wouldn't say I would trust it yet at the moment. I think there's still need for this human eye and knowledge of the language, but who knows what the next few years bring, so it's worth trying out for sure.
Yeah, it's super exciting to hear it. It sounds like some of Adrian's suggestions, what the future looks like, is already kind of taking shape with you guys in front of us today. So I think what I found really interesting was on the flip side of that, when we talk about prioritization and how we work in a way to prioritize which markets are potentially optimized. How do you guys go through a process of prioritizing and also discussing with leadership to maybe determine what market should be prioritized for the changes that you want to see the impact on?
Exactly. The tricky situation is, at first, the SEO was sitting with performance marketing. With marketing, it's kind of the basic setup within a company. So we decided to switch it to product and tech, so we can have more fluid collaboration. We can collaborate more with all the squad we have there. We are organized with buyer experience and seller experience, and the idea is to basically infuse SEO everywhere here. Then we use it as a service. SEO as a service is one of the key role and key aspects here. On three main things: the warning. Basically, you have a warning situation, so you address it. Mm-hmm. On consulting, basically any squad can consult you and address it if they have an opportunity or they see something SEO related. And then the next is opportunity. So you have your own roadmap, your own agenda, and based on that, you want to see someone and go to their prioritization process and use it in order to infuse SEO again. That's basically how we organize things at Vestiare.
I really loved the phrase you used about SEO as a service.
Yeah, thanks.
It fits, and in our case, I have to say that we had this similar transition. As I mentioned, we are also sitting in the product and engineering department, so it's nice to see this kind of similarity there. And since we moved there, I have to say it also became not necessarily easy, but more convenient to communicate with leadership and with stakeholders, and of course to prioritize as well. So in our case, I have to say that because we are, organic traffic is extremely important for us, there is a generally good enough understanding and willingness in the leadership team and in the company to kind of buy into this. which does make things easier, but still we have clear prioritization techniques, so to say, which we are following. So for one, within the SEO team itself and in the company, we did prioritize our markets based on the impact that they are bringing. So as harsh as it might sound, unfortunately, not all our markets get the same amount of love. It happens. But beyond that, we are also using this kind of product approach actually in the whole company, and we are prioritizing based on currently on the ICE method, so like impact, confidence, and effort, which means that we also have to follow the same for our SEO initiatives. And because as many SEO teams, we do not have our own Scrum team, of course, we are competing with other initiatives. Mm-hmm. But I do have to say that if we manage to kind of create this estimation of impact and build up the confidence, like have enough evidence sort of to back up our confidence in this impact or achieving it, we are able to get things prioritized, really. So yeah.
I just want to add something regarding the leadership, which is the most important part, I think. It has to come from the top. The priority for SEO has to come from the top. So that first, if you're joining a company, just always start with executive buy-in, just to seduce at first. Then the second thing, educate, as always. Yeah, it has to be a seamless experience of education, of SEO education all the time.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the things that maybe for businesses that have a slightly, or might be in a more immature journey from an SEO perspective, that piece around education is super important to make sure that it becomes a pillar of the marketing strategy going forward. I'm really interested how you've both spoke about sort of the role of maybe of product. I know a lot of people in this room would have read Product-Led SEO by Eli Schwartz, which came out over the last couple of years. And I find it really interesting how you both have teams that sit now more closely within the product realm of the business and are hopefully reaping the rewards from, I know you mentioned earlier that you have quite a large developer team that works very closely with you. So yeah, hopefully that's a really interesting step forward for you both. I think, did you want to?
No,
I wanted
I'm just agreeing with you.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to pivot the conversation slightly to something that I find really, really interesting. And a couple of customers that I work with quite closely in the UK that I've spoken to that I know are here today also face a similar thing around where content is created from an external source. Maybe what's the impact of that and what the implications are and how you sort of create a strategy around dealing with relying on content from external sources.
That's an easy one. I mentioned I have one SEO content manager. I still have one content manager. So no growth in headcount, nothing. So you need to add some automation process for sure. It works as a three-phase approach on my side. I call it SEO Galaxy. We love nicknames. The first one is the vortex. You need to collect all the data, which is API interconnectivity, where you retrieve information from Botify, obviously, but other tools as well, third-party tools.
Just Botify.
Yeah, just Botify. Mainly Botify, especially with the new tool, the new Smart Link. For sure. Yeah. Then there's a second phase, which I call SEO app, which basically you can transform the data into actionable action. This is where you can use AI for sure. It helps a lot. And again, at the end, you can use a brand manager, local resource manager in everywhere in the world who can basically implement this with a human validation at the end, for sure, it's needed. And then the next phase is the monitoring. It's kind of where you have regular checks, you adapt your strategy, you adjust accordingly to the result, and this is how it's supposed to work. There's another step, which is the strategy navigation. You need to understand your content limitation at some point. Okay. Regarding the content, it's very important from a marketplace perspective. Content is user-generated mostly. So you need to understand that you cannot fix everything. You're not going to put you're not going to put automation on the product description. Otherwise, it makes no sense at the end.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Yeah. I really like the systematic kind of approach that you explained. Can't really compete with that, so I'm going to take it from a different angle. We are not a marketplace, but we do face very similar challenges because the majority of our content is our inventory, which is coming from external sources, basically our partnerships, right? So that means that we do compete with the brands we have, with our very own partnerships in the SERP and so on. So what can we really do here? Well, for a start, we try to optimize what we get as much as we can. We do have trouble sometimes, especially when it comes down to things like images, etc., but we do our best. And beyond that, we do aim to bring as much unique, helpful content to the page as we possibly can. That means that we might create things like sort of buyer or purchase assistant style guides, for the user to kind of catch more that top of funnel content. Or we have automated solutions for parts of the content. For example, relatively recently, not so recently anymore, but we created this sort of new way of creating alt tags, which comes down a little bit more to the accessibility side of things as well, which makes it in a scalable way much more easily readable and natural, and it still includes like keywords and explains the image and so on. So yeah, I have to say that because we have this content that is from external parties, we need to do our best to not only add unique content, but to kind of really improve our UX and the mix what we show to our users.
I think that's a super interesting answer as well around sort of what the impact is just beyond the sort of descriptions and stuff like that. What you might expect to be just being able to update. It's not often going to move the needle in the instances of both of the websites that you work on, because primarily you also have to sort of, you are in a very competitive space, but you're mainly you are competing as well with the actual brand sellers as well. So I guess from a competition perspective, how do you handle the SEO strategy that exists around that?
That's the most tricky part.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Always. There's this kind of the multi-dimensional approach for this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember? We have 6 million products. They are unique. So once the product is sold, it's over. It's gone. Okay. So when you want to index a product, that's quite tricky.
Yeah.
But we work with, we focus not only on prices and on products itself. We focus on themselves, sorry. We focus on geo variation. This is where you have the balance between different countries. I mean, if you go to Singapore and if you go to Spain, the buyers are not the same. They're very different. Then we are a second-hand business, so we focus on the second-hand niche for sure. But at the same time, we need to focus on the first-hand niche as well, which is basically every single retailer or website, e-commerce website all over the world selling exactly the same product, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. So it's always tricky, so we need to adapt our strategy all the time. And what we do basically is we focus mainly on catalog pages for us, which is the most impactful one. And on the top of these catalog pages, we recreate an experience for the user. Has some trouble with SpeedWorker for sure, but can be very efficient at the end.
I'm just curious with this because I work with a similar website in the UK that has challenges with actually being able to compete with brand due to just the legal implications of just trying to rank for other brand terms from a second-hand selling perspective. Are you faced with similar problems to that?
Of course. I've got a kind of the legal department from Chanel every month. Every month. I'm first on swimming suit in the US. They call me. Well, they call it legal, but it's part of the play, I should say.
Yeah, which I guess drives other challenges around how you categorize your pages,
exactly.
How things can be categorized in a way that allows them to rank in the SERPs, but not to be implicit in any illegal activities.
Exactly. For instance, we cannot use sales in some of the countries all over the world. So you have to adapt.
Have to adapt. Vanda, over to you.
I agree that adaptability of strategy is very, very important these days. And Actually, not only because of the competition, because as we already heard from Adrian, the changing search landscape. So we do need to be adaptable. But in our case, our strategy is basically based on providing best practices in 3 areas: product data and content. And as part of that, we really need to focus on providing that great user experience and meeting the user needs. Reason being is because, as we discussed at the beginning of the session, we are not a traditional e-commerce. We do not have a checkout, for example. And I mean, okay, it's not part of our business, so it's fine, but we still are aiming at and ranking for a lot of the do intent keywords and so on, even though the user needs to take another step after to kind of complete their purchase. So for this reason, we really need to ensure that when the user lands on our place, we fulfill our purpose, that is to, almost like a sort of online shopping mall, allow the user to not only find those big brands, also find those, don't get me wrong, but also find a sort of interesting vendors, niche vendors, and so on. So as part of our strategy currently, we are working closely with other product teams to also ensure that our inventory includes a very quality mix, so to say.
That's really, I guess, my question more for your side, and I apologise, I haven't worked very closely with you previously, but what I was really interested in is sort of like the stock handling element, where you are sort of more of a website that the shopping mall approach, where people will come, have a look at all of the inventory that's available. Is stock handling quite a challenging part of the UX side of it? Because I guess one of my concerns would be working on a website like that, where we go through a large inventory to find the perfect pair of boots, for example, to wear, and then we didn't have the fantastic user experience if we weren't able to check out on the site because perhaps the stock wasn't available or something like that.
That is more than not working fine. Of course, we do run into the technical issues and so on, but we do have kind of solutions for, you know, if something is temporary not available or something it's you know, visible, like maybe the image is shaded out or something like that. So that part is fine. The trickier part, so to say, is to actually, from the millions, hundreds of millions of items, showcase on that first page to the users what can be interesting for them. And then also, of course, as a comparison platform, allow them to find similar items and at the end find what they are looking for.
Yeah, I'm sure they're both very challenging websites, but I thank you both so much for joining me on the stage today. I think
Thank you.
It was incredibly interesting, so thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.